Alan Miles here. We're going to do a tutorial on invisible compression, also known as parallel compression or New York compression. Invisible because you can't hear it in the mix, just sounds like a good drum set. Parallel because there's a parallel track being compressed at the same time as a clean one, exactly the same but over compressed. And New York compression techniques is said to have been developed in New York by producers that wanted a nice crushed compressed drum sound along with a clean drum sound that's got good dynamics, uncompressed. Bring it together in a mix and you've got a good drum sound. So I've got a clean drum sound sample on the arrange page, and I've put in a little bass line as well just to make it vaguely more interesting for you. So listen. Remember, you can do this with any genre. I've just chose a clean drum loop, and there it is on its own. It's a tiny bit of compression on there, I think I can hear, but not much at all. You can see the dynamic of it. Sounds okay in the mix. So let's have a squint. There's two techniques for doing this. One is to get up a copy of the original drum loop on a parallel track at the same time. This is the first method I'm going to go through now. So I've created a new track. I've copied the WAV across. It's exactly the same. And I'll go to the mixer. There it is there. Color it up so you can see it. And that's the copied track, exactly like the first one. Now I'm going to insert a compressor on there. I'm going to over compress this drum track, this copied one now. Leave the other one clean. There's some Logic circuit types here that emulate different compressors. The Platinum is Logic's own compressor with no harmonic additions, just a clean digital one. There's a Classic AR, Classic AU, VCA, FET and Opto. These are all emulations of famous compressor circuit types. Apparently the AR is Rupert Neve's vintage 33609 compressor. The FET is apparently 1176 Uri compressor. The VCA is an emulation of the SSL bus compressor or the DBX 160. And so on. Obviously Logic might get sued if they say this is Rupert Neve's and so on, but they all add their own flavour and harmonic distortion. So try out different types. So I've chose the Classic AR here, the circuit type, and I'm going to over compress this. The threshold I've come right in about minus 38 dB. The ratio is about 8.5 to 1. Really quick attack. If I put the release right up, you can hear that it holds on to that compression for a long time. I like a little bit of pumping, a little bit of letting go of the compression early, so I don't have it on full. You could put auto release on there, that works quite fine, but I like to adjust it myself so I get a little bit of pumping, a little bit of letting go early. And once I've compressed, the gain reduction VU showing me how much I'm reducing the gain by, so I can then add that gain on the makeup gain. So let's experiment with the attack. You can have it on straight away. You want a quick attack, but sometimes I like to hear a little bit of the first transient to come through. So let's put this in the mix together. So there's the clean one, and I'll bring in the over-compressed one. And obviously it's parallel to the other one. So I'll mix to taste. I'll try and balance it so it sounds quite nice. So that's the clean one on its own. And that's with the over-compressed one parallel in the mix at the same time. Let's solo it and have a listen. I could bring the ratio right up. It's about 10 to 1 there. Squashed it a bit more. What's that sound like in the mix? And I'm keeping on mixing them together, so I've got a clean, nice clean drum sound, but I've got a nice squashed. See, originally that drum sound sounded alright, but now with that parallel compression in there, it sounds much better, and when I mute it, you can hear the original clean one sounding a bit weedy. And just bring that bass back in and have a listen to it. And then I'll balance them without it. then with it. A lot of producers, a lot of people using this technique right now. It creates a nice modern sound. Let's try a different circuit type. They're all bringing their own harmonic distortion to the table. The classic AU. I'll have to adjust these settings now. That's really squashed, isn't it? Bring the ratio down, makeup gain up. So have it attack straight away. So I'm not getting any transient come through, it's squashed straight away. Bring that in the mix, see what that sounds like. And adjust the attack so I get a little bit of that transient pop through, give it a bit of snap. Now attack right down and it compresses straight away. That's without it. With it, a solo it, have a listen. I mean, that would sound savage on its own in the mix, wouldn't it? But it adds a nice little flavour to the clean one. You can hear that initial transient getting through there and then not getting through there. Let's try the VCA. Bring the ratio up a bit. Just come down on the threshold and pull the gain up. It clips when you change from one setting to another. Don't worry about that for now. Quite like that. Bring that in the mix. So you can sort of hear why they call it invisible compression, because if you get it right, it just sounds like a nice modern drum sound. You wouldn't know it was in the mix unless you were shown. And that sounds weedy on its own, doesn't it? Yeah, I've got a nice mix of the two there. Just click the compares. Gone back to the platinum settings. Let's go back to platinum. Let's have a listen to their own, Logic's own clean digital compressor. I have to change some of these settings. Bring up the makeup gain. Let's bring it in the mix, see what it sounds like. Another one of these circuit types. It will bring their own flavour, don't they? You can notice it when you switch from one to another. Often you have to change your settings to match that new circuit type. I quite like this one. Just bring up the ratio a bit, really squash it up. Come down on the threshold. Bring it in the mix. So it's a balance between the clean and the overcompressed. There you go. That's one method. That's the first method I've looked at, and that's copying a track over. But you can also use an aux and use a bus send, and you won't have to have an extra track on the arrange page. So I've got a stereo aux, input bus 1. I'm going to call this the second method for you. I mean, all the compressor settings are going to be similar, but this is a more routing version. So I'm going to delete that original, and I've just got this aux track on there. Input bus 1, select bus 1 on the drum track. See, it's called second method. And I'm going to alt click and bring that up to 0, that bus 1 to 0. So we're sending full signal over to the aux track, and on that aux track I'm going to insert the compressor. And again, I'm going to over compress that now. Just come in nice and deep on the, let's put it on peak. I like using peak because it looks at all the peaks of the compressor, and the RMS is root mean squared. I think it's like an average of the peaks. So I'm using Platinum, Logic Zone Platinum clean digital distorter, clean digital compressor there. It's got no harmonic distortion on it apparently, so I'm going to over squash that now. Bring it in the mix, balance it up a bit. So this is the second method. Look, I'm going to experiment with the compressor in the same way as I did before. Try a different circuit type. Solo it just to get my settings. So release right up, you can hear that it hangs on to that compression. But like I said earlier, I like to have it a little bit pumping, a little bit of movement in there, so the release I have down a bit. This is all to taste. I like a nice moving compression. So that's over squashed. Then bring it in the mix and balance. Mute it to see what you're bringing to the table, and then drop it back in again, just so you can get a flavour. So it starts to sound like a good drum set, and it's invisible. No one would know it was over compressed at that stage. Let's try this VCA one. It's quite a nice one as well, isn't it? Good way of getting a nice modern drum sound. So you've got the original and then an over compressed, balanced in the mix. It's on a parallel track happening at the same time. There is some settings in here. If you go to the Logic Zone presets in compressor tools, there's one called VCA Smashed. You could start with this one if you're not overconfident with the compressor, and then start changing some of the settings, experiment a little bit. It's a good starting point for you. It's nicely over compressed. Bring it back in the mix. That's what I'm bringing to the table, look. The clean and the over compressed. There you go. Experiment with parallel invisible New York compression. My name's Alan Miles. I'll see you later.